very different than sympathy. Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, I'm down. I know what it's like down here. And you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. I had it, yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. At least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me.
Oh, did we lose our connection? We're here. It says Krishna Farm staff and we're connected. Oh, we have to go home and finish watching that for 50 seconds. Oh dear.
That's nice.
Yeah. So to be continued. Maybe we'll find a way to finish it tomorrow. I don't know why. It's, and I don't have my wire to put on my hotspot. Okay. Well, that's a teaser. Let's just call it a teaser. I'll stop it there, and then we'll go to the power.
It came back. The Wi-Fi came back.
It came back,
Yeah.
but it's booty. It's so booty. Yeah, it's loading. All right. So how is everybody feeling? We're going to talk about feelings now. Does anybody want to share what their energy level is right now? What are you feeling right now? You're tired, it's afternoon, it's hot. You're sweaty. I walked down the hill, I'm a little sweaty and hot. Feel like a nap? Did you get a nap? No? Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about feelings. And those of you who are familiar with the Bhagavad Gita know this verse. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. And to subdue it is more difficult than controlling the wind. It's a really good verse. Mind is made up of, it's a subtle body made up of thinking, feeling, and willing, we would say, or desiring. That's where our desires come from. Our thoughts and feelings, they inspire us to behave in a certain way. But when we are not conscious or aware of what we are thinking, feeling, and desiring, we actually lose our freedom to choose how to act. We don't have a choice. It's coming up, we're just acting, but we're not making choices. We're just reacting. So if we want to actually be free or liberated from being controlled by our feelings, then we need to become aware of what they are. We have to be aware, what am I thinking right now? What is the story I'm telling about what's happening right now? What feelings are coming up? What am I desiring right this minute? And that requires mindfulness. So if you're practicing yoga or breathing exercises or chanting mantra, it's really good to be able to check in with myself in the here and now. Yeah? So without emotional awareness, we become kind of victims, emotional victims. The emotions sort of throw us around, and we don't have any real control. We need to learn to identify and understand and honor instead of repress or inappropriately express our feelings or emotions in order to actually use them in our best interest rather than being used by them. And that's the whole process of Bhakti Yoga, is it's learning how to use everything, even our feelings, in Krishna's service. So feelings become stronger when we ignore them, or we suppress them, or if we don't understand our emotions and find strategies to deal with them, then again, they control our lives. I like to think of feelings as news reports from inside our soul who are giving us messages about what's happening right now in our vista, where we are, what's going on in response to what's happening. That's why I asked, what are you feeling right now? You're sitting in this room. I don't know what you were doing 5 minutes ago. You don't know what you're going to be really doing 5 minutes later. We're here now. And being able to check in. What do I feel like in this place? You know, you're in the Goshala. Do you smell something? I certainly smell something. You know, it's not a bad smell. I love cow smell. But I mean, to be able to be aware. What am I smelling? What am I hearing? You know, somebody's down there doing something, or maybe there's a fan that's something. But that's part of being aware. Being conscious is being aware of what's going on now. So we need to access this information and then figure out what our feelings are telling us. And then we can make a real informed decision, a choice. So there are many models, but I like to think in terms of 4 skills that we can draw from in order to increase our emotional awareness. And one is just to welcome them. Welcome feelings. We've been told a lot of times that, oh, you're on the mental platform, don't be on the mind, you know, and all of those things. And that's if you are a victim of your feelings. But what about using them instead of having them use you? So welcoming emotions as information, and then understanding the intensity of emotions. Now, you might be annoyed, frustrated, angry, and enraged, but there are different flavors, like with different colors. You have, you know, rich red, and then you have pastel and pink. So being able to read that, you know, okay, now I'm feeling something, but what is it, and to what intensity? Number 3, identify multiple emotions. And for that, you're going to need a robust emotional vocabulary. And number 4, learn how to channel your emotions. I learned a long time ago, you know, it says, I think Krishna says to Arjuna, the mind is like the wind. You can't control it. It's coming and going. You can't really grab it. So this idea that we can actually control our mind, in my view, is not reality. The reality is we can manage our feelings, we can manage our mind, and we do that through chanting Hare Krishna, you know, engaging in a devotional life. But as far as sitting there and saying, okay, I'm going to white knuckle it and control my mind, that doesn't really happen. Try it out. It doesn't work, right? So we manage it by engaging it. So the first thing we need to do is welcome all our emotions. Be curious about them. They're not negative or positive. Most of us have this notion, oh, this is a negative. This is a negative feeling, to be sad, or anger is a negative feeling. And positive feelings, the only feelings I want to welcome are happiness and joy and those kinds of things. So we need to kind of forget about this category. We may use them in a negative or positive way, but feelings are what they are, and they're emerging. They're there. So to say, oh, I don't want that one, I just want that one, means that you're either inappropriately expressing them or you're shutting them down, rather than thinking, okay, what message is coming through that emotion that I need to pay attention to. So they bring us, these feelings, they bring us the skills and awareness and even the energy to know how best to behave appropriately in every circumstance. So if you are shutting down your feelings and not listening to the messages, you're likely to behave inappropriately in the wrong context. You know, you're not reading the room. And in order to read, you have to look with your eyes and your ears outwardly and also inwardly to know, okay, what's coming up in me in response. This is why context is so important. Number 2, understand the intensities of our emotion. Like I was talking, sometimes they're so soft you might not even notice I'm feeling something, like, I'm feeling something, I'm hot around the collar, my heart's palpitating, my hands are sweaty, I'm clenching my fist, and I'm not even noticing why in response to something happening. And other people won't notice that you're feeling anything because it's just so subtle, but you're still being controlled by it. And when it gets a little bit more energy, maybe it's a medium state of intensity, you may notice it now, but other people may not notice it because you're good at hiding it. You're going, oh God, I'm fine, and you're just struggling with that feeling. When it gets to be a high intensity, you know that you have some emotion going on, and everybody around you can see it too. Body language, voice tone, facial expression. So now you can't hide it. So it's really good to be able to notice it when it gets to be kind of a subtle, soft expression, and then you can work with it before it's like rage, and everybody around ready to kill everybody, and people are like, I don't know what I did, what happened? So these are just some examples of emotional intensity. I mentioned before, annoyed is a soft one. We might sometimes be in a situation we don't know what's going on, but we feel a little annoyed or uncomfortable, and then it gets to, maybe if you don't do anything about it, then it gets to increase to, I'm feeling pretty resentful that that's going on. And if you ignore it a little more, now I'm enraged because I haven't really dealt with it at the annoyance level or explored what is it telling me. Glad, soft. Cheerful, a little bit more intense, and thrilled is like, whoa, now everybody can see I'm thrilled about something, and I know I'm thrilled, and they know I'm thrilled, but they may not know why. Shy, a lot of times people are shy, it's very soft, and if it gets a little more intense, now we're apprehensive. I really don't want to be in a crowd. I'm not just shy, but I'm scared. When you get a little more intense, now I'm terrified. And it moves into another level. Left out, I feel left out. Maybe you notice that you're in a crowd, you're in a room, I'm kind of feeling I don't belong here. And if you don't pay attention to what the message is there, then you may move into a more intense feeling. I'm feeling alienated. It's not that I don't belong, but I feel like other people are doing it to me. I'm alienated in this environment, and if you go even further, now I'm feeling isolated. So just being aware, and as you work on, if you have an interest to work on a robust emotional vocabulary, just knowing there's different intensities, and that's important. Also understanding that there are multiple emotions, there are many flavors, again, intensity, but these are understood to be the 6 basic emotions, and the others are like derivatives, different intensities, but happy, sad, fear, disgust, anger, and surprise. Some people leave out the surprise or the disgust, but in chaplaincy we say mad, glad, sad, afraid, to rhyme with sad, surprise, and disgust, although we remember them. So if you're trying to become aware of yourself and check in with yourself, okay, what is it? Sad, mad, glad, afraid, just to learn to read yourself. Generally, emotions work in pairs. It's not just one emotion. For example, love is a combination of feeling joyful and also acceptance. Some psychologists, one of my favorite person is David Rico, who is a spiritualist, but he's also a behavioral scientist, and he says that love is not a feeling, it's an action word. He has this thing called the 5 A's. Love means it is to be able to appreciate, accept, affirm, affection, and then allowing means the freedom to choose. So the object of your love, which could be God, it could be friends, it could be your spouse, it could be your children, requires those 5 behaviors that you have. There's affection there, there's affirmation, or affirming the object, there's appreciation, and also the freedom to choose. Love is not a forced thing. We say that in Bhakti, Krishna gives us that freedom. In fact, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, it says, I've told you everything I know, now you do what you want to do. And of course, if somebody puts a gun to your head and says, now love me, it's going to be really hard to do that because it's a voluntary thing. Yeah. So the more we learn to identify our feelings and find the exact word to describe them, the more able to work with them we will be. So you might be feeling something, but you don't have a word. And English is the worst language I know in terms of having emotional vocabulary. Listen to each other talk, and we use that word I feel a million times without a feeling word. I feel like a cup of coffee, I feel like a cup of kombucha. I feel like having some coffee, some chocolate. But there's no feeling word, so you're still just living in your head, you're describing something, but you're not naming a feeling. So try practicing putting a feeling word after the words I feel. It's a good exercise. And listen when you hear other people talk, how many times we use the word I feel and there's absolutely no feeling word there. How did we get that way? It's a cultural development, that we've evolved perhaps through trauma and dissociation and avoidance and stuff. We'll learn about some of that tomorrow, but these are the byproducts of that. We just don't feel. We don't name it. We don't even know what a feeling is. We don't know how to even express it. So we've got work to do as a people. Number 4, learn to channel our emotions instead of inappropriately expressing them. I've said this before, or repressing them. We need to know, name it, find a name. We need to be able to put the right label on the feeling. So I'm going to introduce you to this tool. I got it from the director of the Department of Yale. His name is Mark Brackett. He writes a book called Permission to Feel. And I don't know if any of you have read Daniel Goleman's. He's got a lot about emotional intelligence, but way before him, the Yale University was working on this. They have a whole department that studies feelings, and they're going into elementary schools and teaching children right from the get-go how do they, instead of throwing things at each other, how do they name their feelings? They did research on domestic violence even, and they found out that if couples could learn how to name their feelings, they wouldn't have to throw pots at each other. But you have a feeling, you feel angry. You don't know how to say, well, I'm really angry. If you just be able to name it, you wouldn't have to now move to acting out. Just like children, they act out. They have a tantrum, they throw stuff. But if you can catch it and name it, then you're not controlled by it in a way that actually hurts other people, which is what we're trying to do here, not to unnecessarily hurt ourselves and other people. So it has these 5 acronyms, and it kind of goes ruler. It's a good way to remember. The first thing we have to do in order to become emotionally aware is we have to recognize, I've got a feeling going on. And feel it in our body. I don't have a name for it yet. I don't even know what it is. I don't know if it's pleasant or not pleasant, but I'm feeling something. I might be, again, sweating. My heart may be palpitating. I might be flushed. I might notice that I'm holding onto something. Why am I holding onto something? But we need to first become aware. Then we have to ask ourselves, what are the causes? Where's that coming from? First there's emotion, then there's the behavior. If you understand and work with the emotion, the behavior changes so that it doesn't get to an acting out. So we have to understand the causes, and that requires us to do what I call an archaeological dig. Be curious, what's that about? Coming up right here. Then we need to find a word. This is where you need a cheat sheet. You can go to Google, you can go to YouTube, and you just click it in. You can print out reams and reams of emotional vocabulary. I think the nonviolent communication, they have tons of vocabulary, but learn words that actually name feelings. So those 3 things, if we start there, then the next thing is we need to know, what are we doing with those feelings? When we figured out what we're feeling, what are you doing with them? And figuring out how are we going to express them appropriately, what are we going to do with them? And then regulating them, learning how to manage them in a balanced way on an ongoing basis. So I will go through a little bit. We just talked about each one of them. But again, we need to stop and we need to ask ourselves, what am I feeling in terms of our bodies? It starts with our bodies. The one thing we can ask ourselves when we know I'm uncomfortable here or I'm very comfortable here in this setting is to know, is it a pleasant feeling or unpleasant? That's the first question to ask. I'm feeling something. Is it a pleasant thing? Is it not pleasant? Do I want to move towards other people in the world, or do I feel like moving away? That you'll see if you're in a group. Sometimes you're going, this is not my space. I'm out of here. Or, oh, I feel there's just my space. So just notice, it's not a name. You don't have a feeling word yet, but you can notice. Do I feel like connecting or disconnecting, you know? Am I feeling energized? Do I feel energized when I'm in this setting? Or am I feeling completely drained? Again, I have a knot in my stomach, am I feeling balanced and calm? Is my face hot or sweaty? We've talked about that before. This is a tool that you can get online, but it's part of Mark Brackett's book. And I find for bhakti, people practicing bhakti, this is very much expressing the modes of material nature. You know, we have in our Bhagavad Gita that there's goodness, passion, ignorance, but there's also pure goodness. And so what he's done is he's identified, down at the bottom you have pleasant, you know, pleasant as it goes closer to the bottom, and then you have high energy and pleasantness. So he's categorizing feelings in terms of high energy, like enraged, panic, shocked, tense, and then if you go down low energy and unpleasant feelings, you might feel glum, disappointed, down, apathetic. It's low energy, but it's not a pleasant feeling. People generally don't like to feel depressed or glum or whatever, but you don't still have a feeling word until you figure out the energy level. So in the Bhagavad Gita, we talk about passion, the rose-colored glasses, the red, you know, you're looking through that mode. And so he appropriately has put them in red. I'm sure he hasn't read the Bhagavad Gita, but it struck me when I looked at this. If you're going now to the pleasant, to that side where pleasant feelings, it becomes pleasant, you have high energy pleasant feelings like pleased and hyper and surprised and upbeat and festive. So I would say that's kind of some of them, when you're in the mode of goodness, you might have high energy and it's a pleasant feeling. I feel like doing things, I feel like engaging. And then you have low energy pleasant, which is kind of the pure goodness, where we feel calm and at ease. It's a pleasant feeling, but it's not a lot of energy that you want to get up and not do a lot of stuff. You're just happy to be present with yourself. So this is a great tool. You can laminate it, you can find it online and laminate it as you're trying to figure out, what am I feeling? Is it a high energy? Look at that list of stuff. Is it a pleasant high energy? You're looking at the red quadrant. If it low energy, unpleasant, high energy, unpleasant, it's the red. High energy, low energy, unpleasant, the blue. High energy, pleasant, the yellow, and low energy, pleasant. So you have goodness, passion, ignorance, and pure goodness with the green. It's a really good way to learn. So now this mood meter is not foolproof. You know, you can't now go around with this mood meter and now try to figure out other people, because you're gonna misunderstand people. So much of our feelings are inspired by projections of our own personalities and our mood at the moment. So while it's a good tool, you don't want to just become a robot and use it for yourself. And just know that when we're wearing rose-colored glasses, everything looks rose-colored. Today I may really like you, we get along, we're sharing the same mode. Tomorrow we might be in conflict, we're in different modes. Prabhupada said that was one reason why there was conflict. Today I'm in the mode of goodness, I love everybody. Tomorrow now I'm in the mode of passion or ignorance, like, not so much, And so that's part of what goes into our moods at the moment. So we have to be careful not to just stereotype people and make false assumptions about what another person's feeling. In order to avoid doing that, we need to know some questions to ask ourselves and other people as we're trying to increase our understanding of ourselves and other people. So we need to understand. You've got the recognized feeling, now we need to understand, and to do that we may need to be curious and ask some questions of ourselves. You know, what just happened? You know, I'm feeling now agitated, I'm feeling annoyed. What just happened right before that feeling came up? What was I doing before? What might have caused the feeling or the reaction? What happened before this? Maybe in a relationship with a person. You know, I was feeling great, and then somebody showed up and said something in a certain way, they looked at me in a certain way, and I just felt really unhappy, and I'm agitated. What happened? What memories do I have about a place or a person? Sometimes our feelings are what we call transferred from a previous experience we had with somebody else. It's not at all about the person in front of us, but it could be that somebody in front of us reminds us of somebody who was abusive. Uncle Fred. Oh God, they look just like Uncle Fred, their whole mannerism, their voice tone and stuff. And as soon as you come in contact with that person, now all of that trigger, that abuse comes up also. So that might be a question. When have I been in a situation or been in front of a person like this, or someone who treated me like this? Maybe there's a memory that's getting triggered. That's a good question to ask yourself. So you might have the experience of an emotional outburst. I know I've had that experience where I feel agitated, triggered. I might say something that is hurtful, and I think, why was there so much energy in your voice? Why were you so adamant and pushing on that point? You know, that's not going to change the behavior just to feel bad about it. The thing is to know what was underneath that inspired me to say or do that thing, which is why we have to get to the cause in order to change behavior. Behavior doesn't change just because we feel guilty that we did something, because it's a vicious cycle. If you don't understand what feeds the behavior or the need that's being unmet, then you don't change behavior. So you have to deal with it on that level, the emotional level of, okay, what is going on? What's underneath my thoughts and feelings? So once we have understood what it is, we find a label and find a word. We talked about that, sad, mad, glad, afraid. Why is labeling helpful? Why is that an asset? Why do we need a word? Because if we have a label for our feelings, it organizes them and gives them credibility. You know, if you don't, you're acting out something and people are looking at you, and most people, at least me, when I'm in the company of somebody who's maybe angry, I always blame myself. There must be something I did or said that made them feel like that. It may have absolutely nothing to do with me at all, but unless that person can tell me what's going on, I'm blaming myself. I must have done something. So it helps having a label, the person who is feeling something. It helps us understand ourselves, but it also helps us to be more empathetic to other people. If we know that someone just got really bad news about a loved one who maybe died, and they're being really annoying, or maybe they're withdrawing, or they're pushing you away, you may think it's about you, but if you haven't asked the question, you may find out that they just had a really hard day today, you know, something that is going on with them, and they really need to talk to somebody. And obviously if you're angry with them now because you have misunderstood why they're acting like that, you're just focusing on the behavior. You're not focusing on what is underneath that behavior. So without words, we can't communicate with each other. What do I need? And so often, underneath a feeling, particularly a high energy, unpleasant feeling, is a need that's not met, right? So if we know that, I'm feeling some strong feelings, they're not pleasant, they're they're high energy, what do I need right now? What need is not getting met? So that's the question. Once you figure out the word, now we need to know, is it high energy, and what need is that emotion expressing? So this topic is really huge, and we don't have time to go into all of it, but you can do a lot of research in terms of getting a vocabulary list, get a thesaurus. That's another one, you know, a dictionary, but a thesaurus. I was surprised when I went back to school how limited my vocabulary was even to express myself in papers, you didn't have the words. So it's been a journey, getting a vocabulary dictionary of the stars. Now we come to the moment where we have to think, okay, what am I doing with the feelings? Now I kind of accurately know what it is. And the first thing you do is pause. Just pause, take a time out, take a breath. Especially if it's something that is liable to hurt other people, It could also be a positive, high energy thing. You see somebody and you fall in love with them and you decide to run over and give them a hug. And they're like, "You, God, who are you? I don't know who you are." You've transferred. It can be positive too. You've transferred something on them. They remind you of Brad Pitt or some Russell Crowe or something, and you're just ready to give yourself to them. And they're like, "I don't even know who you are. What is that about?" So it's really good to check in and to pause before you start acting out and ask yourself the question: What is this feeling, and what is the need expressing? So we were talking about that a little bit in the grief workshop, about how often when somebody says, "How are you?" and you say, "Fine." I do it all the time. Partly is we don't have time, or we think we don't have time. And sometimes we really don't have time, but we may want to say, instead of "I'm fine," that, "Gosh, I'd really like to talk. Maybe right now isn't the right time. Let's find a time when we can really focus and talk." But typically, the reason we say "I'm fine" is that it spares me having to tell my story of weakness and woe, and fine becomes a polite way of saying, "Please don't ask me how I feel." It's kind of a push. Don't ask me. I don't really want to tell you. It saves you the trouble of having to be transparent and vulnerable. And then, well, yes?
We have something called "Are You Okay?"
Okay.
We have a "Are You Okay?" day.
Here?
Yeah, in Australia.
That's really nice. Yeah.
So is that better than "How are you feeling"?
I don't know. I have to think more about it. You have to tell me more about the "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
I think I've seen that on a poster,
Yeah.
and it's a really good idea to ask people, "Are you okay?" But what I notice is people go, "Yeah, I'm okay." And that's it. Are you willing? When you ask that question, you better be ready to sit down and listen, right? That's the other thing. Is if you're asking somebody, "How are you?" you really don't want them to tell you, because it's going to take time. And do I have time to listen? It might take me an hour to really listen. So be careful when you ask that question, and be ready to listen if you are. So when we suffer in silence, it makes it impossible for anyone to truly understand us or even help us meet our needs, right? So it's important to be able to say, if you're not fine and I need to talk, maybe right now, but let's get it on our calendar. Let's meet later on. Maybe have a drink and a pie and chai or something, and sit down and talk. And when we express our feelings, we're saying, "Here's what I feel and why, and here's what I need from you right now. I need somebody to talk to." That's really hard for us. It's a simple thing, and it would save us so much unnecessary suffering, because the worst suffering is to suffer alone. The founder of hospice, Cicely Saunders, she said that you might be dying, but it makes it bearable if you have somebody to share that experience with. Dying alone is the worst thing. So having the support of other people who can share that with you makes it bearable. So it has benefits physically, expressing our feelings increases our immune function, lowers our blood pressure. It actually improves our mood long term, reduces stress. They found that it even increases college students' grade average. And in the research, they found out that offices, for example, that gave space for people to talk and express themselves in the workplace, there were less absentees. Because so many people, they have jobs that they don't enjoy, because they're just like doing it to get the money and go out of there. They don't have a emotional investment. So if you have a wonderful environment, a community environment at work, then it's pleasant to go to work and work with people who you know and care about. or serve. And in a community this large, or any community, it makes it so much more, how do you say, more comfortable or more pleasing to work with people that you actually know. Part of the reason we don't express our feelings is there's kind of a stigma against, sharing your feelings. You're weak, and you have a problem, but I don't. So it's really helpful if we can learn to listen and hear another person's perspective, and doing that without shame ourselves or judging ourselves, but also shaming and judging other people for having feelings and being in need of talking about them. So after we have the ruler, recognize we have a feeling, we understand what it is, now we're labeling it, and then we have to express it or figure out how we're expressing it. Then we need to learn how to regulate emotions, and that's a word that I found was really new. How do you regulate your emotions? So if you're not expressing them inappropriately or being reactive, and you are not suppressing them, there's something in between. But part of regulating emotions is having a balanced lifestyle so that you can be slowed down enough or conscious enough that you are aware of what's coming up in you. And part of that has to do with taking care of yourself. If you are all the time, have regular spaces where you can talk and share openly, you're not likely to get to an extreme where you're exploding on people because you are regularly doing that. Exercise is a huge help for being able to regulate or manage our feelings. Why? Because it helps us. When you're exercising, you're kind of with yourself. It brings oxygen to the brain and the body, but it's kind of a meditation. People who take walks, it's a meditation. They do it, it helps ground yourself. Journaling, meditating or chanting, breathing, getting enough sleep. That's a hard one because in yoga people want to sleep less. And you may, and I've noticed that this as I've gotten older, I don't have the same need for sleep. I may sleep a few hours at night and take naps. Prabhupada used to laugh as he got older, and he would say, I can't eat, because as you get older, your digestion gets pretty bad, even though you like to eat. It all comes out, indigestion, or you feel like you have heartburn or something. So Prabhupada would say, I can't eat, I can't sleep, I can't have sex. Gosh, I must be liberated, in the sense. It comes to that in a natural evolution, but you can't, if you're artificially trying to do these things, then you end up suppressing or over-expressing. So, sleep if you need it. Take a nap. Don't try to artificially, sleep 2 hours at night and then be angry all day with people. Same thing with fasting. We do a lot of fasting in the Bhakti tradition. Fast till noon, fast till midnight. We do a lot of those things. Some people think it's because it's a good way to save money, But again, it's not something you can do artificially. Some devotees, as you get older, they can't do a full fast. Pregnant women are not advised to fast, but you need to grow in your own pace. And if you find yourself fasting and not sleeping and hating everybody, that's probably not a good thing. That's probably something you need to listen to and do this gradually. And noticing when we need a break. Sometimes we work and work and work and we don't notice that we need a break. So, the meta moment, this is a word that Mark Breckett uses. When we are coming to the thing, we recognize we have a feeling, we understand, and we have a label, we have a name. Now we have to pause. This is called the meta moment. You go, okay, before you start doing anything with your feeling, take a minute and take a deep breath. We have this polyvagal nerve in the center of our chest. If you breathe deeply for 45 seconds, no matter how upset you are, it'll bring you back to center. It's called grounding. And trauma therapists use it. I cannot tell you how important that is. Those of you who practice yoga, I'm sure, have experienced how powerful just breathing brings us back to center. So that's a good thing to do if you know that you're upset and you're ready to say something, hit somebody, do something that you're going to regret later. Take a pause, and you might be overwhelmed. You know, it's not just anger. Sometimes you're feeling triggered and feeling sad. You won't feel like you want to cry or sob or do something. Roll on the ground. In the hospital, we see all the time people who come in the emergency room. Generally, men are punching walls when a baby dies or they lose their loved one, and they don't move to crying, they move to anger. So they're punching walls and want to punch other people. And women roll over and get on the floor and they're beating the floor. And there's a lot of ways you can express feelings. But it's just a good idea to just take a minute and pause, take some breaths. And it gives you a moment to check in with, what would my best self be doing right now? Some people, some born-again Christians would say, what would Jesus do? You know, we could say, okay, if Prabhupada were sitting here, what would I be doing in this moment? Would I say that? Would I do that? So you could ask yourself, what would my best self? We all have a vision of ourselves when we're actually our best self. What would I do? And do that. Think about doing that. So the meta moment, you've got these 4 steps. First, sense the shift. You might be going along in a very peaceful way, a predictable way, and then something happens, and then your mood changes. You know, it's like you have a beautiful sunny day, and all of a sudden there's a storm cloud, and there's thunder, and now we have a downpour. I don't know if you have that here, but often in a kind of a tropical environment or a hot environment, it gets too hot, and suddenly you have a storm, a thunderstorm, and it's unexpected. So you might notice that emotions are like a storm, they're like weather, and that everything's fine, and all of a sudden you get triggered, and you know, what happened? I mean, I was happy this morning. I had a nice breakfast. I had a great time doing what I was doing, and then something changed. What was it that changed? So sense the shift, if you felt caught off guard, and then stop or pause. Okay, I've noticed that something has shifted. Stop. Create some space before you respond. Step back and breathe. Number 3, envision your best self. Who do you want to be? Who would you like to be? That's how we grow, creating some kind of vision of a goal. Who do we want to be in our best self, when we are our best self? You can use words to describe, or attributes to describe who you are wanting to be, or who you are when your best self, or you can have an image of yourself. Like sometimes somebody who's morbidly obese will go on a diet, so they have you post on your refrigerator pictures of skinny women in bikinis. You know, okay, this is who I want to be. So, or you want to be a yogi, and so you have a picture of a guy in a beard in the mountain in the cave, and you're meditating. So, okay, that's what I want to be. So you may have to think about, who am I when I'm my best self? And then strategize. You want to choose a path that's going to support you in being your best self rather than your reactive or your triggered self. You may know this in Australia, but in the United States, a lot of therapists use this. It's a really good acronym to think in terms of, when I'm feeling triggered, I need to stop. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Halt. It's a really good little thing. If I'm hungry, get something to eat. You know, I mean, okay, it's a fast day. You may be able to get by with a juice or a piece of fruit or something if you're ready to hurt somebody because you're hungry. Get something to eat. If you're angry, halt. Check in with yourself. If you feel lonely, don't just sit there. Find somebody to be with. You know, we have a huge community here. There should be probably too many people. It's like, oh, I don't want to be around so many people. And tired. That's when we are at risk of hurting other people. And in this profession of the helping professions, I know you're a doctor, so you probably know this as well, is that if you don't take care of yourself, that puts you at risk of hurting other people. So it's not a luxury to take care of yourself. We have this notion, especially in spiritual circles, that selflessness means that we don't care for ourselves. That's completely untrue. You cannot actually be a compassionate person and understand what other people need if you don't take care of your own needs. So it's an obligation, a duty to care for yourself, because if you don't, you're ending up hurting other people. So get your needs met. I know in the Red Cross, I'm a certified Red Cross chaplain, And if you go out on an earthquake or a volcano, or not a volcano, but a tornado, you know, where they mashed all the houses, or a flood or something, and you're out on the field, they require, after an 8-hour shift, that you come back to base camp and you check in and debrief. If somebody, because they're feeling like a saint and performing, they stay out for 12 hours and you don't see them, they say, thank you, but we can't use your help. We can't use your service. Why? I'm out there saving people. I'm out there helping. Because you don't know how to take care of yourself. That means you do not know how to take care of other people. So only if you know how to care for yourself are you going to know how to take care of others. We get this on the airplane. I didn't notice that when I flew up here, that the stewardess did that. But in the United States, they have these drop-down masks, and they show you put your mask on first before you try to help the kid next to you. So you're not going to be able to help anybody if you are depleted yourself. So taking care of yourself is a duty. It's not a luxury. So I put a list of some different feelings and what they are really telling us. I like to consult with a woman named Carla McLaren. You can see her on YouTube, but she has a book called The Language of Emotions. And it gives us a real healthy, positive spin on what emotions are really telling us, the benefits, the gifts that we give. And she divides feelings. She has about 18 feelings. Brené Brown has identified 85 different feelings that are very subtle that you may not even know the words for. But she divides them into 4 categories: the fears, the sadnesses, the happinesses, and the angers. You might think, well, how could there be so many flavors of fear? So she would say, fear, instincts, and intuition, they arise to let me know about changes in my environment. So we all have this experience of being afraid of the unknown, right? You walk into some situation that you're not familiar with, there's fear there. But anxiety, and that's a good thing, right? If a bear comes, or somebody comes with a gun, or you need to be on alert. It's a self-preservation emotion. It's a good thing. It may save your life to have fear. Anxiety, you may not think about it, but we all have anxiety. For example, if you have a job, or you want to get up for Mangal Arati, it's your anxiety that sets your alarm. If you didn't have anxiety about oversleeping, you wouldn't set your alarm. So that's a service to you, that you have that anxiety. That's a built-in mechanism. So it helps you prepare for the future and get things done. If you went to school, oh God, I've got homework. I got to get that done, otherwise I will fail this class. So the anxiety kicks you in the butt and gets it done, right? Confusion, interestingly enough, is categorized as a fear thing. You might be in a situation, I don't know what's going on here. It's a very subtle form of fear. It lets me know when there's too much going on around me or inside me and I need to step back. It's a self-protecting, a defense and coping. Jealousy, interestingly enough, it's a kind of a relational radar that helps me choose and maintain strong and supportive relationships. You know, sometimes you think you've got a friend and or a spouse, or you feel like you're really tight with somebody, but then you notice that, gosh, I'm feeling jealous that they're talking to somebody else. What's that about in me that I don't feel secure in my relationships? So we've got a radar that tells you, yeah, you thought you had a solid relationship, but there's something about you that's pretty insecure. Do you really trust that you have a relationship here? That's good to know. Envy is a different thing. Sometimes we use jealousy and envy together, but it helps us gain and maintain access to resources and attention. So often we're envious somebody has some benefit. Maybe they have more money. Maybe they're more beautiful. Maybe they have, more resources than you do. And we are envious because we don't realize we have the potential to have those things too. We want what other people have, but the reality is we can choose if we want to get those resources. And so it's kind of a projection of things that we feel that we lack in ourselves, and that's good to know, to point it back to ourselves and to say, okay, why am I envious? I remember when I was training to be a chaplain educator, there was another student chaplain educator who was working with me, and he didn't have any problem. We were coming up to this huge exam, And I was the director of the department, but he didn't have any problem taking days off so he could work on his huge papers. And I didn't have time to do it. And I was so envious of him that he nonchalantly would just bail out, and I'm holding all of these things. And I couldn't understand why I kind of hated that guy. I really hate that guy, you know? And I had to do that work on myself and say, well, what is he getting to do? What do I need that he's getting to meet, that he's meeting himself? He needed rest, he needed time to do his paper, and I didn't have the time, nor would I guess too proud to be able to say I needed time. I wouldn't do it, so I just hated him because he was able to take care of himself and I wasn't able to. So that's just a good indicator. Go back to yourself and ask, why am I envious of this person? Panic and terror, that's a real fear also. It protects us when our life is in danger. It can also move to complicated grief or trauma. So, you know, you have to see how much that is. Sadness is, we talked about in the grief course, it helps us let go of things and that no longer are working. It makes room for things that still work. So we might feel sad, we don't have energy, it slows us down. Grief does that as well. It forces us, when you have no energy because you're sad, it forces us to, again, take care of ourselves, slow down, and find out what do we need now, you know, instead of pushing ahead. Situational depression, it's different than biological or chronic depression. Situational depression is really about being in a situation that drains your energy, and you may notice things that are not working well. Maybe you need to change your situation. Maybe what I'm doing right now is not the right thing for me. Maybe it's time to change. That's different if you have like a organic thing going on where you might need medication. That's a different thing entirely. But often what I've seen with people is that if they change their situation, like they hate to be in Melbourne because it's raining all the time and it's freezing all the time, well, move to New Govardhana. You get better weather. You know what I'm saying? Because that the situational change and just fix it. Yeah. Angers. Happinesses. Let's go to that one. There are different kinds of happiness. You know, happiness coming and going like summer and winter seasons. One must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed, right? So the trick with happiness, it comes when it comes. You can't make it happen. And the more hard you work to be happy, the less happy you get. This Western culture is so based on trying to get happy, you know, and the more we try to be happy, the less happy we get. But if you are happy, it helps you look forward to the future and with hope and delight. And even though, you know, Prabhupada used to say we have to live as if this were our last day, but we need to make plans as if we're going to live forever. Nobody knows when we're going to die, but happiness means to be able to balance these two things. That I know death can come in any moment, but at the same time, I'm going to enjoy making plans that may or may not happen. You know, this is happiness. I can look forward to the future. Contentment, it's not jumping up and down. It's about knowing that I've done something well, a sense of satisfaction, which is something I would aim for more than happiness, is doing what gives me satisfaction. Joy is, in our bhakti tradition, we might call it bliss. It's a word that I never heard before I met the Hare Krishna people. Like, I don't know what bliss. It's a word I've never used. Well, when did you ever use that word in English? I never did. But the word joy to me is what bliss is feeling a sense of oneness with others in the world. You know, the sense that I feel in harmony, I feel at one and connected with others and the world around me. And then you have finally the fourth category, which is anger, the angers. Tell me what I value and when I or others have been wrong. It helps me protect and restore what's important. Now I've had, when I share this piece of information, a lot of people are like really allergic to anger. There's lust, anger, and greed. These are three gateways to hell. But anger has a function as well. You know, there's something called righteous anger. It's all over the Bhagavatam and the Mahabharata, if you've read it. The whole battle of Kurukshetra was fought because Krishna got tired. He got angry. Draupadi, who was a pure devotee himself, was abused. She was disrobed in a public seminary. That's equal to rape in this culture. He should have been angry. He was angry. And they tried and tried. The Pandavas had tried for years to negotiate with the Kauravas, that let's find some way to get along. And the other party just would not cooperate. And the Pandavas, they were exiled, they went to the forest, they had suffered so much abuse. And finally that was the last straw, to see Draupadi be abused in a public setting. And he said, that's it, we're going to fight this out on the battle. So you may say, well, gosh, how could God himself be thinking in terms of being that angry? Well, that's righteous anger. And we should know, if we're going to use our feelings in Krishna service, there's a place for anger. When we see abuse happening in front of us, we should be angry. We should try to stop that. Not, oh, well, it's somebody's karma. That's not using. This is information that we need to use and inspire us to bring change when we see abuse. Guilt and shame, this is very often thought of as synonymous. Guilt is when we have done something that we regret or we know was wrong in terms of a social norm. But it's not that we are bad, but we've maybe done something kind of bad. Maybe we've said something or done something that's not socially acceptable in our environment or doesn't even resonate with our values. But shame is, I am bad. That's different than I've done. I'm a worthy person. I just did a big boo-boo, and I'm now going to come behind myself, and I'm going to apologize and how do you say, repair that. Shame, though, is I'm just hopelessly a bad person, and there's nothing I can do about it. So there's something positive about guilt and shame because it helps us monitor our behavior and also make amends. Our conscience lets us know when we've made a faux pas. We all know that. When we've said something, and as I've done this work, I've become much more aware of how I spoke to that person, and what I said, and how I might have sounded to the other person. That's a big blind spot. We all know how we are affected by others. We all know, because we're all the time assessing and judging other people. The mind is all the time accepting and rejecting. But what we don't know is how our behavior affects other people. Nobody's telling you, but everybody has an assessment of every one of you. And you don't even think about it, because if you're doing it, they're doing it too of you. So there's something called the Johari window that I will not be talking about here, but it's something you can look up. It's something I train in our chaplains, and you've got these 4 quadrants. There's things I know about me that you don't know. There's things I know about you that you don't know. There's things that I know about me and you know about me. I'm wearing the yellow cloth. I'm an older lady. I have gray hair. There's certain things you may not know, like I might be afraid of heights, or I hate to eat broccoli or something. I may not tell you that. But there's one quadrant that is a complete mystery. There's things about me I don't know, and there's things about me you don't know. And that's what we're here to discover, is those unknowns. And we can only do that if we do that archaeological dig, understand feelings and what they mean. So these are all what we're here to discover in the spiritual practice, is uncovering those unknown parts of ourselves. And truth be told, inside is a universe that we have yet to discover. And you may not even get there in a lifetime. When you think of the gross material universe, now you have an internal universe that is yet to be discovered. Here's a couple of tips for increasing emotional awareness. Recognize emotions are a fact of life. They're not going away. You can't fake it. Sometimes we feel happy, sad, angry, disgust, surprise, grief. They come and go. They're not permanent. Acknowledge, tune into how we are feeling and name it. I feel angry, I feel relaxed. Practice that. Put something after the word I feel. Don't judge your feeling. Oh, I shouldn't be feeling that. Well, I feel it. well, but I shouldn't feel it. Well, I feel it. How do you just accept what I'm feeling right now and ask the question, what's underneath that? Accept. Learn to accept how we're feeling in the moment. This does not mean doing nothing about a challenging situation, but just be aware. There's nothing more powerful than just being aware of what's going on inside of you and around you. Give space, emotion space. Feelings is healing. Allow yourself to feel what you feel in the moment. Notice your physical sensations that are coming up. I know that until I did this work, I was completely oblivious about my sensations in my body and mind. I was just not at all. And I'm an old lady by now, you know. And I've been doing this for 10, 15 years. And gosh, if I had some of this information when I was 20, my whole life would be different. My marriage would have been different. My relationship with my children would have been different. And so I'm hoping that there's some younger people who can make use. Notice physical sensation, become curious. That's the antidote for judging, because the mind is all the time judging, making an assessment, accepting and rejecting. When you notice yourself judging, we all do it, move to curious. I'm wondering what is underneath that person's behavior. I'm wondering what's underneath their mood right now. And then move into it. Ask, what's going on? How are you feeling? Still more tips, be kind. When we bring awareness to our feelings in the moment, notice whether they are offering self-criticism or self-compassion. We are all so critical of ourselves. You know, we're as critical, if not more of ourselves than we are of other people. We need to move to compassion. We're human beings. We're not going to be perfect. We're not trying to be perfect in yoga. We're trying to have perfect love. I said this before, but those of you who were not here in the morning, I cannot say that enough. Save yourself the trouble of criticizing yourself. You're doing the best you can. That's all you can do. Be mindful of your thoughts. There's an interplay between our thoughts and our emotions. Be aware of thoughts that fuel emotions that increase our suffering, and then listen for the message in the feeling. So that's all I got for today, and I want to just say that the sources I used for this were Mark Brackett's Permission to Feel. You can get it probably as a PDF. He's all over the YouTube. You can watch him talking. He's primarily working with children and teachers of smaller children, because he feels like the world will change if you get kids when they're younger. It's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. I'm trying at 70, but it would have been much easier when I had a memory and I had some flexibility. So it's the next generation we need to train. Language of emotions. She has audiobooks. She also goes through all of these emotions on YouTube. You can hear her talking about a lot of strategies that we go into in the 5-week courses. Atlas of the Heart, Brené Brown, if you're familiar with her, she's fantastic in terms of emotion. And finally, I just want to introduce some of you to karunacare.iskcon.org. If you're interested to learn more about what we do, you can go to this tab. We have a Get Help button. It's our Karuna Care Association chaplains. They manage that, and so people all over the world who want to have compassionate listening, they go to that tab, Get Help, and they click on that, and it goes into another bunch of circles. We have devotees who are mental health professionals. They specialize in different things like marriage, trauma, and other kinds of issues. And then you have the compassionate listening circle. So you click that button, and when you go into that, you fill out a referral form, and then it goes to our referral list of Karuna Care chaplains. And within 48 hours, somebody in your time zone and your language will get back to you just for conversation. If it looks like after a few conversations that your needs are beyond our scope of practice, we have a team of psychiatrists from the Bhaktivedanta Medical Association. There's like 200 healthcare practitioners internationally, from South Africa to India to Russia to UK, and we have 13 languages right now on our referral list. So there shouldn't be any reason why people can't get somebody when they need it to talk to. And sometimes we have found people prefer to talk to people they don't know and talk to somebody who they know, because they don't want it on Facebook tomorrow. So I'm going to stop here and see if there's any questions. We also, during the festival, come midday on Friday, we're setting up a little gazebo New Govardhana has a, they're calling themselves a mental health and emotional awareness, I think, emotional wellness collaborative Australia. So we've combined forces with the New Govardhana team. There's a few psychotherapists here in the region. Dr. Kishore also is a specialist in trauma. She's a GP, general practitioner, and Corona Care, and then this collaborative. So we'll be sitting there outside the temple all day, Saturday, Sunday, half day, while people are coming in. Come by and just sit and talk. We're here to listen. So I'm going to stop here, and if you have any reflections, something that came up you'd like to share, some insights, something you learned, or a question, this is your moment. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, apathy came under the slide of anger, and I noticed it said about setting boundaries, so I was wondering if you could expand on
Oh,
that.
right. Sorry, I should have gone. You all have probably experienced, you're in a situation where you're powerless to change it, or you think you are, right? So you go, whatever. You know that there's something that needs to change in your environment. You probably have seen that in any organization where the management is doing things you think, yeah, not so much. I wouldn't be doing it that way. But you're thinking, I can't do anything. I'm helpless. So you then, to cope with the frustration you're feeling, which is anger, you go to apathy. I don't care. Whatever it may be, I don't care. And that's kind of saying, it's disempowering to say that, because there's a lot of things we can do. We have a voice. That's one thing we can do. We can say something, right? If you see something, say something. And it may be scary, because you may think, oh gosh, they may, like if you're in a job, you may have to confront your boss who's, inappropriately behaving or abusing, and you speak up and you lose your job. But if you have any kind of a leader who is worth their grain in salt, they will appreciate the feedback, because it's pretty lonely on the top. If you don't have anybody who has the courage to give you some feedback, you may not know. It's like the king with no clothes. This guy, he doesn't even know. He's walking around naked, and we see it. And nobody's going to say anything. So if you really care about people, it's worth it to try to give some feedback. Yeah. Chances are they'll take it. Yeah. Anything else? Maybe just thoughts. You don't have to ask a question. Yeah.
Accountability. So if you're really aware of your emotions and so you've got education. You've got power with that.
Yeah.
So then you need the intelligence to make sure that you don't use your tongue hurtfully. And so I think you covered that self-care is such a large portion of it, because if you've got all the understanding of emotion, but then you don't look after yourself,
Right.
you reject all of that information onto somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah, you become a victim. Now you're blaming. Usually, this is so typical when you've had a loss and you're grieving. People want to know why, and looking for somebody to blame. That's what we do. And if we understand even our existential philosophy, not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Supreme. Somehow it came to my door. Something happened, and I didn't want it to happen. It wasn't pleasant, or somebody died, or somebody said something. And so a devotee, Prabhupada used to say, don't criticize the deliverer of your karma. It's something that happened. It may not be pleasant. I may not have wanted it, but it happened. So now the question isn't why, it's what now? What do I do with it? How do I receive it? How do I learn from it? And what is the message? So pausing is really helpful to learn to reflect. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
I was just wondering what your thoughts were on denial, like when you're trying to either help someone and maybe you're met with not even outright denial, like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't do that, but it's like, oh no, I'm already doing that.
Yeah.
But it's like, you kind of see that it's not really, or maybe you meet the denial in yourself, like how can you help to heal and move through that?
Well, obviously, when you move to, we have this idea of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending as 4 animal propensities. Those of you who are studying bhakti, that you're probably going to hear somewhere, right? So, but defending is not just defending with your body, shooting somebody or hitting. It's also explaining, justifying, and rationalizing. Now you're on the animal platform. You're not hearing. You're not open to feedback. Lord Chaitanya, whenever he heard criticism, his ears were, he would open his ears, tell me more, tell me more. And when people were praising him, he would close his ears. That's where we're moving. And that's a hard one, because it's not comfortable for people to give you feedback. And I, having started Karuna Care by myself 4 years ago, I had nobody to help me. I had no idea how to do anything. I didn't have a website. I didn't have any money to do anything. I just started. But along the way, the pilot group, we made a lot of boo-boos, and they gave me a lot of feedback. This doesn't work, and that doesn't work, and I don't like that, and maybe you should do this and that. I could have easily given up, but I started to think, okay, how do I make those adjustments? It was really helping me. It didn't feel good. I would have liked to say, oh, shut up, you try to do something. But I just would embrace it and say, okay, that's a good idea, let's try that. And it would make it better, And then the next year, we started in 2019 on Janmashtami, when I started to create the whole plan and the vision. And I just course corrected with the feedback. And I can't tell you that these people who gave me feedback are my best friends. They didn't come out very often, very smooth. People give you feedback. Sometimes it's pretty blunt, and it's not very polite. And you just have to swallow it and open and say, okay, let your heart open to it rather than become defensive. Because you're not learning anything. That's what animals do. We're defending ourselves. And that's from fear. I'm feeling threatened. Now you have to ask yourself, why am I threatened by feedback? But people who are wounded and they haven't been able to process that are generally guarding that wound. Because just like if you step on a dog's tail, wow, he's going to bite you. If you're poking into somebody's wound, they're going to, So the first thing to do if somebody is give me space, is to create safety. Forget about trying to tell somebody something. They're not ready to hear it. When they're ready, they'll get it, right? They'll find what they need. Krishna doesn't have to work through you. He works through so many people. It doesn't have to be you. But like if you go to a dog and the dog is now growling at you because you're frightening them, what do we do with wounded animals? In America we have several shelters where people take in wounded animals. What do they do with wounded animals? You feed them, your voice tone is soft, people who have trauma on board. If you're speaking loudly, you're standing over them, you're being pushy, you're being forceful, that's going to re-traumatize them like a wounded animal. So you feed them, you sing to them. Sometimes in the elephant sanctuary you have people singing to them, This is the bhakti process. We're wounded animals, all of us. But our defenses are not coming down unless we feel safe. So you've got to, as the person who's seeing, this guy's really in denial, you've got to think about how do I create safety here? Not to how, bulldoze into trying to get them to see. That's your issue. If you're bulldozing to try and, they need to understand me. That's not about you, it's about them. That's the best thing you can do. Create safety. Start from there. Any other thoughts, takeaways? Well, we have lots of time to get up there for dinner. Yeah.
How do you deal with anger when you've learned to fear it? Like when you've seen it in others and it's, in an unhealthy way, like just explosions, and then if you experience it, you don't know what to do because you're afraid of doing that.
Yeah, I know. I have that. I've had to work on that. I hate conflict. And in order to be a chaplain or a chaplain educator, you got to do the work that you're trying to teach. And it wasn't fun, but I hate conflict. And I had to learn, part of it, I had to learn about the gifts of conflict. If there's not conflict, there's not understanding either, right? If you don't, the tension and difference helps you come to growth. So anger is kind of like that. Learning the gifts of anger, how for example, if you have somebody who's violated your boundaries or crossed over into your business, and you're like, okay, there's something healthy about that to know, okay, I'm protecting myself, especially if you are a spiritual practitioner and you are wanting to be faithful to a path. So you've chosen a path. And you have all kinds of now things that are trying to take your attention and focus and stuff. And sometimes people will say, you're crazy, like your wife or your parents. You decide, no, I'm going to practice bhakti yoga and I'm going to be at the temple for 3 months. And your mom's going, get a job. Why are you wasting so much time? You need to be out there making money. I mean, I know that my parents, they really was traumatized when I joined the Hare Krishna. It was just something. But you have then something inside of you in a healthy way that says, I have to fight for what's best for me at a certain point. So it depends on what context you're in. I didn't ever want to acknowledge my anger at people trying to run my life. At a certain point, you do grow up. Your parents get a chance to control you until you're 15, according to Chanakapani. After you're 15, your parents have to treat you like a friend, because you're out of there. You have to grow up and take responsibility for yourself. So being angry at other people trying to run my life was something I had to look at and go, well, what is it? Can people really, why do I allow people to have that much power over me and to control my life? I'm a grown-up, right? So I didn't want to be in rage or move to rage, but I did have to honor my anger to know that, okay, I have to empower myself to take full responsibility for myself and stay focused on the path rather than, So I did have a lot of fear about moving to rage, but I ended up, when I would get in an experience where I felt angry, I would move to tears because I didn't know what to do with I couldn't stand up for myself, right? It was very disempowering. And I was looking for someone to rescue me, So it's really about understanding what feelings are and knowing that anger is not a bad thing, but when you move to rage, now you're being controlled by the anger. And I would stay out of the way of people who are raging at you. It's toxic. It becomes toxic. If you're in love with somebody who has toxic anger, you might want to think about your relationship, whether this is really good for you, A lot of times people get in relationships and they get stuck. Relationships can become a habit. I know if you've been married for 70, 80 years, it's kind of a habit. Your spouse becomes an appendage. You're not talking to them anymore. Or they're sitting in front of the TV, drinking or whatever they're doing. And you're like, but you're stuck because you have your finances are all entangled. And you're kind of in a prison there. Then you need to think, this is not good for me.
Can I ask a question on that one?
Yeah.
In that relationship with, toxicity,
Yeah.
a pendulum, like toxicity is not good, but then you've got the pendulum swings back to, so if you've met someone that is, can bring out the worst in you maybe through past trauma that they related to, so like the mirror is like triggering, but that person is also a mirror of such great potential, so you wouldn't want to give up on something that's amazing just because it scares you because it's also dark, or it might bring that darkness out.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, and so there is such a thing as trauma bonding. People get hooked up with somebody who has a similar trauma, and now you're just beating each other up all day. That's
But could you not make it a good thing?
Can be, but the question is, are you capable? Are you healthy and balanced enough? We all think, I can change that person. It's not a good idea to go into a relationship thinking I'm going to change that person. And in my experience, only whole people in a relationship can really help serve each other. If we're going into another direction, which maybe we don't want to go into, but I have come to believe, as I've journeyed through this bhakti path, that inside of each one of us, we have an anima and an animas. We have a male, female. Radha Krishna is inside. If you're a Taoist, you're thinking in terms of yin and yang, but there's these two energies, right? And of course, in the physical world, it manifests as male and female. But we all have that inside of ourselves. So often we are reaching for the opposite sex to try and get our need, when we have need met for something in ourselves we are have not nourished. So people will often pick a partner who meets a need in ourselves that we haven't nourished in ourselves. And now it's really based on need and not really service. and love in between. My experience is that if you have a man who has embraced his feminine side and is assertive and grounded in his true self, and a woman who has embraced their also assertive side and are completely balanced, then you really do have something to give. You're not just sucking energy from each other, and the other person isn't complete. You're looking to them to complete me,
Like that.
which most relationships are built on the need for that person to complete me, and you're going to be frustrated because no human being can satisfy all of our needs. Only Krishna can do that. But if you have two Krishna conscious people who know where their love is, and the true source of their love, then you can, with that love in between you, have a pretty nice relationship. And I've seen some very healthy Krishna conscious relationships, and they grow old together, and it becomes a very beautiful thing. But if you're if you're marrying someone because you want them to take care of you or serve you, and it's not about you serving what's good for the relationship, you're going to be disappointed. It gets old really quick. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? It's good to massage a topic. You can go very deep. Yeah.
Is that just what you were describing then? Is that like also referred to that codependency? Is that what that's?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is like that. You know, when we're young and you know, there have all kinds of hormones going on and stuff. And we think, most of us, we're looking for someone to take care of us. You know, most men want a mom. You know, they want somebody to clean up after them and do their clothes and stuff. But I mean, the old days, the guy was the hero. You know, he's protecting and providing. You know, but it's all blurred now. Things are very blurred, so roles are very blurred. Women can do a lot of things men can do, and probably better. You know, men can do things too. So that's not a bad thing. But just being aware of what are your gifts, what are your forte, and if you think in terms of relationship as service, this is why we go back to bhakti. People are motivated by pretty much three things. They're either motivated by revenge, kind of tamasic, or the desire to make money or wealth or material security, or they're motivated by love. So as people are practicing bhakti yoga, what we're trying to do is practicing the motivation. Our intention is to love and care. That's what we're trying to do here. We don't do it very well. That's why I'm doing Karuna Care, because I don't do it very well. And I'm hoping by studying it and practicing it, maybe one day I will be a truly compassionate person. You know, you kind of teach what you want to learn, right? So, and it's wonderful to be around other people who are also pursuing that, because you can be kind of honest and humorous about yourself, your attempts to care, and how narcissistic we are. You know, most of us care pretty much about ourselves. It's pretty easy to, and we don't realize it. We think we really are trying to care, and the other person is thinking, didn't feel like care to me. If it doesn't feel like love, it's probably not. You know, didn't sound, oh, I love you, I didn't mean it. Well, it didn't feel like love. Well, it probably isn't. You know, it's saying you love someone. It's an action word. What does that mean? And it's a scary thing to be in a relationship, because you can't control. It's all about vulnerability and accepting what is. And as you are in relationship with men or women or a community, there's like stages in a relationship. It's the same thing in a community. Some of you who are new are probably going through a honeymoon stage with the Hare Krishna movement, right? You come into this beautiful place, there's food coming out of every hole in your body, you know, it's just incredible here. I mean, and so that's the first stage. Just like when you meet new people, you're seeing their good side, everybody's, you know, we kind of do that. It's a love bombing kind of thing. But stick around a little bit, you're going to see some things. How people spit when they brush their teeth. Oh my God, they're spitting on the mirror. You know, you get married to somebody, you live with somebody. That's a different thing, right? You know, the guys that are peeing everywhere but the toilet. You know? And the seat is always up, you know, and you have to go to the bathroom, and all those different things that get on your nerves when you're really close to people. That's the disillusionment stage, and it has to happen. It's not true love. Honeymoon stage is really about lust. You're wanting, all your needs are being met, and it feels really good as long as that's happening. But just wait a minute. And you get close to people, you start to be disillusioned. You're probably thinking, all the Hare Krishna people, maybe they don't have any problems. Maybe they're all pure devotees. That's what I thought. I was completely enamored, you know. And then I moved in. And I started to see, well, they're human beings. They have anger and their grief and they're messy sometimes. And they sometimes smell bad, you know, and all those things, right? They're human beings. That's what we need to know, is that just because you're practicing a path doesn't mean you're not human. But if you've, like, I'm an initiated disciple of Srila Prabhupada, it's like getting married, right? I tried when I went back to school to find someone else, like another tribe. If you saw the Lion King movie, that's my story. Did you see that movie? Do you know that story? He left his tribe and he thought, okay, I'm just going to forget about being responsible. And so I explored everything out there. You know, every religion. I thought, well, let's try something else. It doesn't have to be Hare Krishna. They're not the only people in town. And but I couldn't leave Prabhupada. You know, I was like, it had everything. Everywhere I looked, I studied in seminary. I studied the Hebrew Bible. I did the whole thing. You know, having got a Master of Divinity degree, and I realized at a certain point that these are my people. This is my tribe. I can't deny that. And so the next stage, from disillusionment, I think it's a natural stage. We have to come to that, to be disillusioned, because the honeymoon stage is not forever. But once you take a commitment in marriage, or even taking vows when you take initiation, because you've taken, and this is why we make marriage vows, and this is why we make vows to a spiritual master, is when the goings get tough and you're thinking, I'm out of here, you will leave the path before you actually achieve pure love. Honeymoon stage, most people bail out at the disillusionment stage. It has to happen, because whatever you thought was love is not. After the disillusionment stage, because you've made a promise, you've got to learn some skills to learn tolerance, right? That's the next stage. Like, I'm out of here, this is really hard. My relationship's not working. My relationship with the devotees in the community is not working. I'm doubting a lot of stuff. I need to learn some skills. This is why community care can be valuable, because we're teaching skills. How do you interrelate? And how do you learn to tolerate? How do you talk to people, communicate, repair relationships when they're broken? We need those skills in marriage, but we also need those skills in community, because you're going to bump around. You get this many people in a room and shake it up, you're bumping around. That's going to happen. Don't think otherwise, and don't be surprised. But from tolerance comes true love. That's, you go through those stages. Now you get to the stage that Prabhupada used to say, ISKCON, with all thy faults, I love thee. You're my people. And I've come to that too. Yeah, people are at different stages. They're in more, some are more realized, some are not. Some are just beginning in this lifetime to pursue bhakti, and some are, you know, but when they took birth in this life, they already had been on the path generations, lifetimes before. So don't compare yourself, and just accept people where they are, and mind your own business. You know, it's you that has to get back to Godhead. You don't have to worry about everybody else. And when you get back to Krishna, he's not going to ask you about Sally over there or Radhika over there. It's only between you and Krishna. Yeah. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I'm not sure how to voice it.
Okay.
It may come back to some of the stuff we've discussed, but all I can think about is dealing with parents and family when they say things that rub you the wrong way.
Like?
Facetious comments.
Like? Give me some examples.
I can't think of any examples,
Yes,
because I tend to shut them out.
I know. Sit a minute, they're there.
But I'll say something that maybe is a little bit silly, and then my dad will find an opportunity to poke at it, say stuff, or my mum will have certain opinions about certain things and think I should do something in a different way, and then, you know, feelings start to urge up, and then you freeze.
Right.
You don't know how to react, and either shut down.
Yeah,
Escape.
parents. Yeah.
Yeah.
And parents, you're never, they're just being parents, you know. You're not changing parents. You know, I'm 70, my mother's 95, she treats me like a 12-year-old. Doesn't change. And she's just been a mom, right? She
Yeah.
cares about me, worries about me. And you're not changing my mom. No way. So you either gotta change how you're dealing with them, or what? You're not changing them. So you can think, you have to make up a story, okay? It's just my mom. She's out of love, she's treating me like a 12-year-old, right? She's stuck in that place. That was a fun time for her, or whatever. And you can ignore it, you can make it humorous, you can engage it. You know, if you have some skills, you might engage it. You know, what is it about me that makes you say that? Or you can ask without getting angry. Ask your dad or whatever. There are parents, sad to say, who are passive aggressive. You know, and part of that is the desire to keep you small. You know, parents when they have little kids. I have 2 sons and I have 4 grandchildren, and the boy, kids are cute when they're little. Even pigs are cute when they're babies. I lived in Govardhana where the pigs were in the poop channels on the side of the road, and they were so fresh and pink and cute until they turned into boars where they're making boar bristle brushes out of their hair. But parents also, there's a kind of grief issue when you grow up and you're not that cute little thing anymore, and the confrontation that I'm going to be alone when they're out of my life.
Yeah.
And also seeing, if you're this old, how old am I? Right? My mother's looking at me, if you're 70 and you're already a gray old lady and you're a grandmother, that means my days are numbered. You know, how old am I? So all of that, it's a lot of fear there. And you can choose to have a relationship and work with it, or run away, you know. Sometimes you have to create some boundaries. But especially with old people, at a certain point, there's no point trying to teach them anything. In fact, it's kind of cruel when you get to be old and vulnerable. They are what they are, and you can love them through it. Not take it so seriously. Unless you give them that power. And I think that's one reason we get angry, is we give them more power than they really have. Okay, so sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Do you have that in Australia?
Yeah.
You say that, okay. So you only give other people the power to hurt you. They don't have that power unless you give it to them. If you know who you are, and you know what you know, okay. So that's what they think. It's just telling you more about them than about yourself. And know that. Somebody who's judging you and criticizing you, that tells you about them. It doesn't tell you about you. You just need to know who you are. Perfect, pure, spiritual being, Satchitananda. That's who you are. No one can take that away from you. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any other?
You might have just explained it, but when you said, you know, in that situation, if you have the skills, you can engage it. So what are the skills in that?
Well, you could say, I'm wondering, I noticed Dad or Mom, that every time we're together, you say that. I'm wondering, what's underneath that? Help me understand why you say that. What's that about? Throw it back in a kind and smiley way. So I noticed there's kind of a pattern here. Every time I show up, you pick on me or something.
So
I never do that. What?
Sorry to cut you off there, but just how could you go about getting those skills just before you?
Practice, yeah.
But at a certain age, so like my mum was like a matriarch, and she did like to keep the kids young for as long as she could, because she needs to feel needed. But an amazing woman, courageous, strong, smart, intelligent. But it's just cruel to bring up her shortcomings when she's coming into 70 instead of just saying that's who she is. I'm a middle-aged man now, and I just love what she's done for me.
Right. So this is where we hold the tension. This is the hardest thing we have to train in chaplains, because there's many times life and death situations that I have to speak my truth because another person's life is at stake, but I have to say it in a way that communicates care.
Yeah.
That's the skill. So with your mother or your father, who maybe they are being harsh and they're 70 and stuff, somehow you've got to be able to say, you know, Mom, I really care about you. You've given me so much. And I know I wasn't easy to take care of growing up. And I care about our relationship. And I'm wondering what it is about me that you feel the need to always point that out. What is the need there? Or not? Or just name the observation. I just noticed that you tend, could we talk about something? Is there something else we could talk about? Right? So that's the balance, is how do I keep the stay in relationship? We tend to do things like throw stones and run, you know? You know, this is passive aggression, you go, and then I'm out here, because you don't want to get but how do I stay in relationship and communicate, and from the heart, you know, you have to get to this place. I really care about you, that's why I'm saying it. If I didn't care, I wouldn't say anything. And I wouldn't also be bothering to hang around, I wouldn't come to see you, right? So you just need to lift that up to people. That softens a lot of people's hearts when you're in a conflict, to say, look, I care about you. I want our relationship to be strong and rich and deep. And I'm kind of confused about this behavior that I notice you do all the time. And maybe there's something I'm doing that I need to change that I could do if you just be clear about what you need me to do. I can follow some rules. That might be as simple. What do you need from me? You know, because a lot of times our behavior is driven by unmet need. I was just asking a question. Help me understand. I really want to understand. Help me do that. And then listening. It's not easy to do. That's why we have to practice. None of us are very good at it. Yeah.
I have a question. How do we know what's the good way to even express our emotions? You know, like, for example, most of the stuff we learn from our parents or by our surroundings. And once again, when you move across the country, and most of the things are related to time, place, and circumstances. It's like kind of, I believe it's like a lifelong learning process.
It is. It is a lifelong learning process, and it has your culture that you're from has a lot to do. And I lived in India for 10 years. I know that people don't speak very openly about things. They're very indirect. Some cultures are like that, and it's a real no-no to be clear and direct with people. And but I have also Indian students, and they have learning skills to go back into their culture and educate their parents, you know, and engaging in a different way. And so you have to be able to balance that with love. You know, if you're practicing bhakti, whatever you're doing has to be motivated by love and care. And you can name that. And if you can somehow embody that care, then you can do a whole lot of stuff. If you can do it with care rather than just anger or defensiveness or trying to hurt people. It's when we try to use our words and our behavior to hurt people that spoils relationship. But I know that if you can confront with care, it brings people closer. And it's natural to happen. Connection, these flow. If you know relational cultural theory, if you study relationships, marriage, friendships, communities, it goes through a flow. Connection, disconnection, reconnection. So you may have a disconnection and you feel it in a relationship. It might not be an explosion, but then you both go, you have had a disconnect with somebody, girlfriend, boyfriend, some friend, and you go, oh, that didn't feel right. Now you have to do an archaeological dig to know what happened. And you may have to talk about it. Now you have better understanding. Oh, I said something that, or did something that was really hurtful. I didn't know that. I didn't intend that. A lot of times people go, oh, that was really hurtful. Oh, I didn't mean it. That wasn't my intention to hurt you. But then you need to bring closer together. Your intention and your impact have to be more in alignment. So then you need to think, if I say or do that thing, how is that other person going to be affected by that? We are not thinking of that. We're thinking only of how I am being affected. So you have to go softly, try stuff out. I call it poking the possum when you're experimenting in relationship. You poke something, you try something out. If it doesn't work, you know, that's not something I want to do again. You know, and learn to say I'm sorry. You know, this is something we need to learn to do as we're learning to be in relationship. Be able to say, yeah, I'm an idiot. just be able to say that. We're all complete idiots mostly. And get used to it. You make a boo-boo, right? When you poop, you have to wipe. That's just the reality. I mean, right, this is life. So you're gonna have bumps with people. Don't fear it. Move in and repair it. And you'll see, my goodness, I learned so much there. And your whole heart will explode when you can repair a relationship that was just a stupid something stiff. But so often we will not repair them, and for the rest of your life, you always have this hard knot in your heart. You're resentful. And every time you have a resentful, angry, bitter emotion, it's squirting toxins into your whole body mind. So just free yourself from that by learning how to move from grief to forgiveness. And that's another talk. How do we forgive? It's not condoning, but just try stuff out. You know, you're Indian, do stuff different. They'll think you're really revolutionary. I know, you went to that Western culture now, and you learned all those terrible bad habits. They're such loose people. I'm just kidding. But I also work a lot with Indian folk in Melbourne, you know, and they also are waking up that I can't do the same things that I did in India. Now I know a little bit more outside the cultural conditioning. You know, we're not Indians, we're spiritual beings and we should grow. We're not our bodies, you know, we're not also our conditioning. So learning that, why don't I do that? Well, my mom said I do that. I learned it from my mom, that's why I do that. I lived in Vrindavan for 8 years, and we had always Rajasthanis coming in with their turbans and different, you know, and they would come to the temple. We didn't learn this, but it was something I noticed. They would come to the temple, and they would do their ears and do all kinds of movements and twirl around 3 times and go out. And I thought, I wonder what that is. Prabhupada never taught us that. What is that? And then I was like, I'm going to ask somebody, what are you doing there and why are you doing this? I don't know. My mom told me that. I had no idea why we do it. So learn to ask questions of social norms. Why do we think like that? You know, Muslims are bad. You know, we also have this kind of religious bias. We have racial bias. We have all these things. And it's mostly inherited. Ask questions. Why do I think like that? Where did I get it from? Oh, my mom and dad used to talk like that. They used to speak like that. So I just internalized it. Now it's becoming. So now you have mom and dad's voice in your head, and that's not you. So often, if you're not examining and finding who you really are, you're just parroting your mom and dad who are arguing in your head. Now you have to ask, what's the third voice? I'm not my mom. I'm not my dad. I've learned things from them. I'm grateful for that, but I'm a unique person that's more than that. Find that voice. That's in you. So that's what it means to become self-realized, is to know yourself. You're not your mom and your dad. I vowed when I became a mother, I'm not doing it like my mom. And I joined the Hare Krishna movement, and I thought, I am so much better than my mom. I'm not doing it like her. And then I had kids, and I did everything that I saw my mom do. And I said, wait a minute. I was not going to be like my mom. And I needed to figure out, how am I going to do this as being a mom? It's not going to be the way my mom did. There are things I learned that were great, so I can choose. But if you're not choosing your life, you're conditioned. And now you're just a prisoner of your conditioning. You have to rise above that by knowing who you really are. That's the lifelong learning you're talking about. Did we have enough yet? It's time for dinner, right? You got to get up the hill. So tomorrow we're going to talk about trauma and kind of pull together feelings and grief. For those of you who started off this morning, they're all related. And I'm hoping it's beneficial, whatever we're talking about.
Simply amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming and humoring me. You know, old people love to talk.
Thank you so much.